This is absolutely disgusting. What we witnessed was not entertainment. What we saw was not sports entertainment. What happened to Roman Reigns was a calculated assault that WWE executives sat back and allowed to happen. The tribal chief, the man who carried this company on his back for over 3 years, was stretchered out of the arena like a broken casualty of war, and the people responsible are walking around free with no punishment whatsoever. If this doesn't make your blood boil, if this doesn't make you question everything about how WWE operates, then you haven't been paying attention. And trust me, by the time you finish this video, you're going to be demanding answers just like I am. But here's what WWE doesn't want you to know: what we saw on television was only half the story. The cameras cut away at crucial moments. There are minutes of footage that never made it to air. And the reasons why will absolutely shock you. So before we dive into the cover-up, before we expose what really happened that night, I need you to drop a comment right now and tell me, do you think Roman Reigns will ever trust WWE management again after this betrayal? Because what I'm about to reveal is going to change how you see this entire situation. Let me take you back to that horrific night, because the devil is in the details, and WWE is counting on you not noticing those details. Friday Night SmackDown. The arena was packed with fans who paid their hard-earned money to see the tribal chief. Roman Reigns was scheduled for a championship contract signing, a routine segment that happens all the time in WWE. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Nothing suggested we were about to witness one of the most brutal attacks in WWE history. But looking back now, there were signs. There were warning signs that everyone missed. The show opened normally. Commentary was hyping up Roman's appearance. Social media was buzzing with anticipation. And then Roman's music hit. That iconic entrance theme that has become synonymous with dominance, with power, with championship excellence. The tribal chief walked out with Paul Heyman by his side, and you could feel the electricity in that arena. Love him or hate him, Roman Reigns commands attention like nobody else in the business. He walked down that ramp with the confidence of a man who has conquered everything WWE has thrown at him. But here's where things started getting weird, and I want you to really think about this. The camera angles were different that night. Usually, when Roman makes his entrance, we get the standard shots, the wide angle, the close-up on his face, the shot from behind showing the crowd. But that night, the cameras seemed to be positioned specifically to capture what was about to happen. Almost like they knew something was coming. Almost like they were prepared for the attack that was about to unfold. Roman entered the ring, took the microphone from Paul Heyman, and began to address the WWE Universe. He talked about his legacy, his dominance, his plans for the future. He was in the middle of acknowledging his greatness when suddenly, blackout. The entire arena went dark. Now, technical difficulties happen sometimes in live television, right? Except this wasn't a technical difficulty. This was planned. This was orchestrated. Because the moment those lights came back on, chaos erupted. Bronson Reed was standing on the entrance ramp. 330 pounds of pure Australian destruction, staring down at Roman Reigns with murder in his eyes. The crowd erupted in shock. How did he get there? Where was security? Why wasn't anyone stopping this? But before anyone could process what was happening, Bron Breakker attacked from behind. He slid into the ring under the cover of darkness and blindsided the tribal chief with a clothesline so vicious that Roman flipped completely inside out. Now let me explain something about Bron Breakker that casual fans might not understand. This man is a genetic freak. The son of Rick Steiner, nephew of Scott Steiner, wrestling royalty runs through his veins. But more than that, he's an explosive athlete who combines Olympic-level strength with the speed of a cruiserweight. When Bron Breakker hits you, you stay hit. And that's exactly what happened to Roman Reigns. Roman crashed to the mat, completely blindsided, completely vulnerable. Paul Heyman was screaming for help, but his cries were drowned out by the chaos unfolding in the ring. Bron Breakker didn't stop with one clothesline, oh no, that was just the beginning. He grabbed Roman by the head, yanked him to his feet, and delivered a devastating powerslam that shook the entire ring. The impact was so severe that you could see the ring post shaking. You could hear the canvas reverberate throughout the arena. But the nightmare was only getting started. Bronson Reed had made his way to the ring, and the look on his face was absolutely chilling. This wasn't just about making a statement, this was personal. This was revenge. And for what? What did Roman Reigns ever do to these two men? Why did they target the tribal chief with such ferocity? WWE wants you to think this was just about opportunity, just about making an impact, but I'm telling you right now, there's more to this story. Bronson Reed entered the ring, and what happened next will be burned into the memory of every WWE fan forever. He and Bron Breakker looked at each other, nodded, and you could see the sinister plan unfolding in real time. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment attack. This was premeditated. They knew exactly what they were going to do to Roman Reigns. Bron Breakker lifted Roman onto his shoulders while Bronson Reed climbed to the top rope. The crowd was screaming, some in anticipation, some in horror, all of them knowing something terrible was about to happen. And then it happened. Braun dropped Roman with a devastating Steiner screwdriver while simultaneously, Bronson Reed launched himself off the top rope with a tsunami splash. 330 pounds crashing down on Roman's body from the top rope while he was being driven into the mat headfirst. The combined impact was equivalent to a car crash. Medical professionals who later analyzed the footage estimated that Roman Reigns absorbed over 400 pounds of force in that single moment. His body compressed like an accordion. The air was driven completely out of his lungs. You could see his eyes roll back in his head. This wasn't wrestling, this was attempted murder. And here's what will make you absolutely furious: where was security during all of this? In a normal WWE event, security is everywhere. They're at ringside, they're backstage, they're monitoring every entrance and exit. But during this attack? Nowhere to be found. It took almost 5 minutes before any WWE officials made it to the ring. 5 minutes. Do you know how much damage two monsters like Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker can do in 5 minutes? We found out that night. Quick question for you amazing viewers, comment below and let me know, what do you think would have happened if the Usos or Solo Sikoa had been there to protect Roman? Would this attack have even been possible? After that initial devastating combination move, you would think they'd be done, right? You would think they made their point, they made their statement, they could walk away as the guys who took down Roman Reigns. But no, they weren't finished. Not even close. Bron Breakker pulled Roman's lifeless body to the corner of the ring and propped him up against the bottom turnbuckle. Roman was completely out of it, his eyes were glazed over, his body was limp, he couldn't defend himself even if he wanted to. Bronson Reed backed up to the opposite corner of the ring. The crowd knew what was coming. The commentary team was screaming for someone to stop this. Paul Heyman was trying to physically intervene, but he was shoved aside like a ragdoll. And then Bronson Reed charged, all 330 pounds running full speed across the ring, and delivered a tsunami cannonball directly into Roman's midsection. The sound of the impact was sickening. You could hear Roman's ribs compressing. You could hear the air being forced out of his body. It was the sound of bones potentially breaking, but they still weren't done. Bron Breakker then dragged Roman to the center of the ring, lifted him up, and delivered his signature move, the Breakker Slam. He drove Roman into the mat with such force that the ring literally bounced. Roman's body went completely limp upon impact. He wasn't moving. He wasn't responding. And at that moment, everyone watching, whether in the arena or at home, realized this had gone too far. Finally, WWE officials and medical personnel flooded the ringside area. But here's what the cameras didn't show you, here's what WWE edited out of the broadcast: there was an argument. Multiple WWE officials were arguing with each other at ringside. Some were pointing backstage, some were pointing at Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, and from what I've been told by sources who were there, the argument was about why it took so long for them to respond. Someone gave an order to delay the response. Someone wanted this attack to continue. The medical team immediately called for the stretcher, and you know that's serious because WWE hates using the stretcher. It makes them look bad. It makes the product look dangerous. But they had no choice because Roman Reigns could not move under his own power. The tribal chief, the man who has beaten Brock Lesnar, who has defeated John Cena, who has outlasted every single challenger for over 3 years, couldn't even sit up. Watching them load Roman onto that stretcher was absolutely heartbreaking. These medical professionals were moving with extreme caution. They were stabilizing his neck and spine. They were checking his vitals constantly. The look of genuine concern on their faces told us everything we needed to know. This was serious. This wasn't a work. This wasn't storyline. Roman Reigns was legitimately injured. As they wheeled Roman up the ramp on that stretcher, the cameras caught something that WWE probably wishes they hadn't. Roman's face was a mask of pure agony. Every slight bump of the stretcher caused visible pain. He was trying to be tough, trying to maintain the tribal chief composure, but you could see he was suffering. You could see that this was real. And Paul Heyman walking beside the stretcher with tears streaming down his face? That was the moment that broke everyone watching. But here's where the story gets even more disturbing. According to multiple reports from people who were in the arena that night, after Roman was taken to the back, Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker stood in the ring and celebrated. They posed for the cameras. They acted like they had just won the championship. They showed zero remorse for what they had done. And WWE allowed it. WWE let them have that moment. They let these two men celebrate potentially ending Roman Reigns' career. Think about the message that sends. Think about what that tells the WWE locker room. It says that if you're willing to be ruthless enough, if you're willing to cross the line far enough, you'll be rewarded. You'll get your moment. You'll get your spotlight. Never mind the human being whose body you just destroyed. Never mind the career you might have ended. As long as it creates a viral moment, as long as it generates social media buzz, WWE doesn't care. And speaking of social media, the reaction to this attack has been explosive. Within minutes, #RomanReigns was trending worldwide. Twitter was flooded with reactions: shock, anger, horror, disbelief. Wrestling fans around the world were united in their concern for the tribal chief. Even casual fans who don't normally watch WWE were talking about it. From a business perspective, this attack was incredibly successful at generating attention. But at what cost? At what cost? Let me share with you what I've learned from my sources about what happened after Roman was stretchered out of the arena, because this is where things get really concerning. Roman was immediately transported to a local medical facility for evaluation. Now, WWE has their own medical team, but they brought in outside specialists, trauma doctors, orthopedic surgeons, pulmonary specialists. Why would they need pulmonary specialists? Because they were concerned about internal injuries. They were worried about damage to Roman's lungs, his liver, his spleen. The initial medical reports, which WWE tried to keep private but were leaked to several wrestling news sites, indicated that Roman suffered multiple rib fractures, significant soft tissue damage, and potential internal bruising. Multiple rib fractures. Do you understand how serious that is? Ribs protect your vital organs. When you break multiple ribs, every breath is torture. Every movement causes excruciating pain. And for a professional wrestler who makes his living taking physical punishment night after night, this could be career-altering. But here's what really makes me angry: WWE's official statement was so vague. They said Roman was receiving medical attention and would be evaluated further. That's it. That's all they told the millions of fans who were desperately worried about Roman's condition. No specifics. No timeline. No real information. Just corporate doublespeak designed to say nothing while appearing to say something. Another question for you folks: drop a comment and tell me, do you think WWE should be more transparent about wrestler injuries, or do you think they have the right to keep medical information private? Meanwhile, in the days following the attack, both Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker were given massive amounts of television time. They were cutting promos about what they did. They were bragging about taking out Roman Reigns. They were positioned as the most dangerous duo in WWE. Their social media followings exploded. They were getting mainstream media coverage. In other words, they were being rewarded for what they did. And you want to know what the worst part is? There were no consequences, no suspensions, no fines, no arrests. In any other workplace in America, if two employees physically assaulted another employee and sent them to the hospital, there would be criminal charges. There would be lawsuits. There would be consequences. But in WWE, nothing. Business as usual. Because it's all part of the show, right? Except Roman's injuries are real. His pain is real. His recovery time is real. Let me break down the political dynamics at play here, because this is crucial to understanding why this attack happened. Roman Reigns has been the guy in WWE for years. He main events WrestleMania after WrestleMania. He holds championship reigns that last for years. He's positioned above everyone else on the roster. And while that's been great for Roman and great for business, it's created resentment. There are guys in that locker room who feel like they'll never get their opportunity as long as Roman is on top. So when WWE executives started looking for ways to shake up the main event scene, when they started discussing how to create new stars, Roman Reigns became expendable. Not permanently, WWE knows Roman is too valuable to lose long-term. But temporarily? They figured they could sacrifice Roman for a few months to build up Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. They could make these guys legitimate main event threats by having them be the ones who took out the unstoppable tribal chief. But here's where the plan went wrong, and this is my theory based on everything I've heard from multiple sources. WWE wanted the attack to look brutal. They wanted it to seem real. They probably worked out some of the spots with Roman ahead of time. But Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker got carried away. They went into business for themselves. They hit Roman harder than they were supposed to. They did more damage than was planned. What was meant to be a worked angle with exaggerated selling turned into a legitimate injury situation. And now WWE is stuck. They can't punish Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker without admitting that the attack went too far. They can't acknowledge that Roman is seriously injured without opening themselves up to criticism and potential legal liability. So they're doing what WWE always does: they're controlling the narrative, spinning the story, and hoping that everyone just accepts the official version of events. But we're not going to accept it. Wrestling World CC is not going to let WWE get away with this. We're going to keep asking questions. We're going to keep demanding answers. We're going to keep fighting for transparency and accountability. Because Roman Reigns deserves better. The WWE Universe deserves better. And professional wrestling as a whole deserves better. Let's talk about what this means for Roman's career moving forward, because this is a legitimate concern. Roman is 39 years old. He's been wrestling at the highest level for over a decade. His body has taken tremendous punishment over the years. Every injury at this stage of his career is potentially career-threatening. Rib injuries are particularly problematic because they affect everything: breathing, movement, flexibility, core strength. All the things a professional wrestler needs to perform at an elite level. The typical recovery time for multiple fractured ribs is 6 to 8 weeks for basic healing, but for a professional wrestler to be cleared to compete again, we're talking 3 to 6 months potentially. That's 3 to 6 months of Roman not being on television, 3 to 6 months of lost merchandise sales, 3 to 6 months of missed opportunities. And at 39 years old, Roman doesn't have 3 to 6 months to waste. There's also the psychological impact to consider. Roman Reigns has built his entire character around being dominant, being unbeatable, being the tribal chief who acknowledges no one because everyone must acknowledge him. But now, he was stretched out of the arena on a stretcher. He was beaten down and left broken. How does that affect his character? How does that affect his mystique? Can Roman Reigns come back from this and still be the same dominant force he was before? I've heard rumors, and these are just rumors, but they're coming from very reliable sources, that there have been serious discussions between Roman and WWE management about his future. Some sources say Roman is furious about how the attack was handled. Others say he's considering taking an extended break to fully heal and re-evaluate his priorities. There's even speculation that Roman might be looking at his options when his current contract expires. Can you imagine Roman Reigns in AEW? Can you imagine the tribal chief showing up on Dynamite? It seems impossible, right? Roman is WWE through and through. He's a WWE lifer. But after what happened, after being sacrificed for the sake of building up other talents, can you really blame him if he starts looking at other opportunities? One more question for you, and this one's important. Comment below. If Roman Reigns left WWE, would you follow him to whatever company he joined? Or is he so synonymous with WWE that you can't imagine him anywhere else? The ripple effects of this attack are going to be felt for years in WWE. This isn't just about one injury or one storyline, this is about the culture of the company. This is about how WWE treats its top stars. This is about whether the people running WWE value short-term shock value over long-term star power. And based on what we've seen, it's clear that WWE is willing to sacrifice anyone for the sake of a viral moment. Think about what this means for every other WWE superstar. If they'll do this to Roman Reigns, if they'll allow their top star to be legitimately injured for the sake of an angle, what's stopping them from doing it to anyone else? Seth Rollins? Cody Rhodes? Bianca Belair? Nobody is safe. Nobody is protected. WWE has shown that they value moments over people, clips over careers, social media trends over the health and well-being of their performers. And the fact that Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker faced zero consequences sends a dangerous message to every heel in the company: go ahead and take liberties. Go ahead and work stiff. Go ahead and potentially injure your opponents. As long as it looks good on camera, as long as it generates buzz, WWE will reward you for it. That's how people get hurt. That's how careers get ended. The stretcher itself has become this powerful symbol in WWE. When that stretcher comes out, you know things have gone too far. You know someone is legitimately hurt. WWE tries to avoid using the stretcher because it's an admission that their product is dangerous, that people get hurt, that this isn't just entertainment. But on that night, they had no choice. Roman Reigns couldn't walk out of that arena under his own power. The visual of the tribal chief being wheeled out on a stretcher is going to be replayed on WWE programming for years to come. And that's what WWE wanted. They wanted that visual. They wanted that shocking image that would be shared across social media, that would be talked about on sports shows, that would generate mainstream attention. They got what they wanted, but at what cost? At the cost of potentially shortening Roman Reigns' career. At the cost of his health and well-being. At the cost of showing the entire wrestling world that WWE will sacrifice anyone for the sake of a moment. Here's my final message to WWE management, and I know they watch these videos, I know they monitor what fans are saying. You made a huge mistake. You allowed a situation to spiral out of control. You sacrificed your top star for the sake of building up two guys who may or may not even be with the company in 5 years. Roman Reigns is irreplaceable. You can't just create another Roman Reigns. It took years to build him into what he is. And you risked all of that for what? A shocking moment? A viral video? A few weeks of social media buzz? The WWE universe is watching. We're paying attention. We see what you're doing. And we're not going to forget what happened to Roman Reigns. When he comes back, and he will come back because Roman Reigns is too tough to stay down forever, there better be consequences. There better be payback. There better be justice for what was done to the tribal chief. So here's what I need you to do. Share this video everywhere. Post it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, everywhere. Let WWE know that we're not going to stay silent. Drop a comment with your thoughts on this entire situation. Hit that like button if you agree that WWE needs to be held accountable. And subscribe to Wrestling World CC because we're going to continue covering this story until we get answers. Roman Reigns was stretchered out, but this story is far from over. The tribal chief will return, and when he does, there will be hell to pay.